Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Larkspur Dance and Choreography Podcast. This is Melanie Daly.
And Kayla, Melanie's assistant. She makes me get her coffee every morning.
Lies. But I am so fortunate and so grateful for Kayla to do this with me. And every time I ask, she says yes. So I'll just keep asking.
Real busy here.
All right, I'm so excited about this episode. This is the first of a series that I decided to start for season 3, and the theme of this series is going to be Flourish, which is sort of a take on our flower name. Named the company after a flower, Larkspur, and so I just figured that the word flourish would be a great name for this theme because I found out through just talking with a bunch of people, anytime, you're working with coaches, working with teams, and people listening to the podcast, and when you're talking to people on the podcast, it is so much more than 5, 6, 7, 8, what we are doing.
Yep. Agree, 100%.
Yes. And so, we all are multifaceted and our lives are multifaceted. And so the Flourish episodes are going to deal with parts of life that are not the nitty gritty and the brass tacks of 5, 6, 7, 8. So the Flourish episodes are going to delve into things like mental health, relationships, life in general. And another reason that we want to do this is every single member of our little Larkspur collective has been touched by COVID in certain ways that have all made us have to take steps in the mental health category. And I'm so proud of all of us for doing that too. And so we're going to talk about relationships and life, mental health, and I'm going to get people who have helped me on those topics other than dance team to come on the show and talk about that. So this is the first episode, and it deals with basically the racial, social, and civil unrest during this time, which was brought to the forefront by recent events not too long ago that nobody could escape from, I think, because of COVID. And it was brought to the forefront by recent events, but it's always been there. And so my friend Iris came on the show and talked about that. And it's just a very real conversation. And I also talked with some other people about this topic as well. And it was kind of a continuation of the talk that my good friend Nicole and I had started about inclusivity with dance team and how she was always only, like one of, only the only one, maybe one of two people of color on her dance team. So, I decided to bring back some others, and Nicole's going to do an episode too. And I thought, okay, I'm going to compile them. But then after I listened to the episodes that I already recorded, I figured that they really deserve their own episode. So this episode is with my friend Iris. She did a podcast in season 1, and I just love her. She is, she's a diva.
I remember I don't remember if this is one of the first times I met her. She was so proud because she had magnetic eyelashes on. And that's what we bonded over were false eyelashes.
That is so funny that you said that because that's okay. So the last time I saw her, I think it was back in late February, maybe, or early March. I don't remember, but I complimented her on her lashes, and she was like, "Melanie Daly, I have told you numerous." Because I said, "Where did you get those?" She was like, "This will be about the 3rd time I have told you."
Were they the magnetic ones?
Yes. She was like, "And here's the code again," and did I get them? No, I did not. But she is an outstanding performer. She's an actor. She has worked at Disney for years and years and years. And our usual topics usually are lashes, shoes. We talk about shoes an awful lot. We talk about packing and travel because she travels a lot. And so I always get all kinds of tips and tricks from her. We talk about dance, and we just have a lot of fun. We have done some real talk before, but not like this. And but now we're doing even more of that. And she'll send me articles related to what we've talked about. And it's been really cool to relate to her on this level. And I would encourage people to start doing that. And I think you'll see that from our conversation. I think people are afraid to talk about this.
Well, and that's what I wanted to say is I listened to this, and it's just nice to hear two people that are friends that trust each other have a conversation over this topic without an agenda, with cancel culture being what it is right now. It's really hard. It's really hard to talk about this without feeling like you're being talked down to or saying something wrong. And this is just a really great conversation. And Iris is, you'll hear her speak, and she speaks with intent, and she's very articulate with what she says, and everything that she says is very well thought out. So she makes a lot of great points.
Yeah. And I think it's just an example of two friends talking who were not like trying to correct each other or fact check each other.
Yes.
Or there was no agenda other than to, let's just start talking about this, educate ourselves and talk about it. So I do feel like I need to preface this with something though. And you'll hear Iris say this too, neither one of us are for extremes of any kind on either side. Iris is not out there breaking storefront windows and stealing television sets.
Maybe lashes if it came down to it.
No, not even lashes, not even shoes, and so I think it's important to hear that too,
right.
But so, that's not what the intent was, is to, to be on either of the extreme side. I think both of us are sort of in the middle and think all kinds of things are wrong. And just because you think something is wrong doesn't mean that you're for something that's on the other side. So keep that in mind as you're listening to this. And if you, after listening to this, are inspired to reach out to us with something hateful, don't do it. If you do, you're going to be blocked.
Bye.
Yeah. All right. So here she is, my friend, Iris Lynne. I love her. And it's just a very real conversation about race relations, basically. Here we go. Iris, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about this very, very important topic. And we have done a podcast earlier, but I think we focused pretty much professionally. I don't know that we really even talked about the fact that you are of color. And I
don't think it ever came up.
It didn't come up. Okay, well, what my goal then is to touch base again because I did on some podcast episodes, that was all it was about, like with my friend Nicole. And then other ones I did bring it up, like, how did this affect you? And the fact that you were of color or of, a different ethnic group than maybe the rest of your team. And we kind of focused more on the dance team aspect of it. But I wanted to just kind of touch base because I think that this is a great opportunity for education. It's also a great opportunity for listeners to kind of think, okay, well, what can I do and kind of help sort of put in perspective all of these events, because I will admit that, I can't watch a lot of it on the news, but I don't want to put blinders on, especially whenever this, it affects all of us, but especially people that I love and care about and that have been, just so great to me, and also the dance world. And so
the dance world.
Yeah. So, all right, so let's start by talking about your reaction to all the recent racial events.
Yeah. But first of all,
sure.
Please let me say, Melanie, thank you so much for doing this. And you just briefly mentioned the dance world. And I just want to briefly say, because we have judged together on teams, and for 15 years.
Yeah.
12 years, 15 years. And you notice even 15 years ago, before any of this madness that is going on today, I would always write on my score sheet or speak into my microphone, please dye the tights of your children that have brown skin.
Yeah.
And that is so important. It's, you're not how can you put these children in colors that don't match their legs, their bodies? And I've been saying this for years. And I have caught interesting questions from not only directors, but the directors of the actual competition. Why would you say something like that to a school director? Because they have these children on their teams that don't match the quote unquote suntan tights. And why are you ignoring it?
Yeah, at least give them the
It's-
opportunity, you know what I mean? To
Right, it's-
maybe you never know, depending on the dancer, she might be like, no, I just want what everyone else is doing. You know what I mean?
True.
Or she might
but
be like, yeah, man, I'll, you know.
And it really went with whatever the routine was or the costume, because everybody knows ballet, pink and black, pink tights,
Right.
black leotard
Yeah,
for
yeah.
class, for sometimes on stage. Everybody knows pink tights. So that's not the issue at all, even though some companies nowadays, of course, have changed the color of their tights from pink to whatever 27 shades of flesh that their company has.
Right.
Yes. However, I'm talking 10, 15, 18 years ago when we were working, how I've always mentioned,
Mhm.
wow, what a beautiful costume you've chosen for this routine. It's very leggy costume. It fits the routine. It's jazz. It's, it's this great color. It's before kids started going tights less.
Yeah, you're right.
Match the skin color of the tights to the skin color of the child.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how now in 2020, that is actually an issue. And I've been saying it for years.
Well,
it's crazy.
You also brought up, and a friend of mine who has little brown skinned babies.
Mhm.
I guess some really creative options are out there, dyeing them, and then so that you don't have to spend the extra money, because you're spending a lot, anyway.
Right.
But if you can dye them, and then some of them are getting the regular jazz shoe, whatever that is, and then there's some sort of painting process or something like that. I know. And so I think that that's so cool, especially if that's important to the dancer. If it's important to the dancer, cool. If it's not, I don't know that I would make him or her jump through those hoops. You know what I mean?
And well, in a competition, since you're scoring on the continuity of the routine,
yeah,
it really stands out with the look. There is a category called appearance on many of the score sheets. And appearance is everything, whether it be, and I know, competitions, it is someone's opinion. So people's opinion, gee, please take that to heart. This is not the be all end all.
right.
A competition is not going to make or break your life. But when you're thinking about someone actually judging you on an aspect of something that is on the score sheet, you want everybody to be as uniform as possible,
well, and I think
within their own routine, that routine.
No, I get it. I get it. But I would say, like, to a coach that's listening to this, I think that communication too is key, because I would want to, like, I could just hear already from a coach saying, we did that. We had her, dye her tights, or, it matches her skin tone. And then I could see a judge that didn't know the hoops that had been jumped through, say, oh, why is she in something different? I'm going to knock you off of a couple points, so you got to communicate this,
And hence the topic we're going through today,
right?
2020. How can you ignore the fact that there are several different shades of brown children in your group?
Yeah.
There are brown people in the world of several different shades. It is very telling today, as a brown-skinned adult, how people feel about you saying, well, then you're different.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no kidding, I'm different.
Yeah.
No kidding, I'm different. Are you just noticing that?
Yeah.
So when we think of today, and one of the questions you ask is, what can we do to help? Please acknowledge the fact that there are people different from you in the world. And I'm not saying, I don't want to say people are racist. I definitely don't want to say racism doesn't exist, because it exists.
Yeah.
It exists in our lives just out of it being, wow, so ingrained in our history as a people.
Mm-hmm.
It exists. Everyone has some level. Everyone has some level of it.
Well, and
Of
that's
seeing the differences and maybe not acknowledging. To ignore is not to
right.
acknowledge. You can't
Well,
ignore it.
and that's not a good thing either.
Correct.
Maybe let if she's on your team, or even friends in your life, or neighbors, or
Right.
whatever, like let them set the tone.
Correct.
But and that's another thing I wanted to talk to you about, Iris, because I think a lot of times, like, if you don't know about situations where friends of yours, accomplished, intelligent friends of yours that happen to have a different skin color than you have actually gone through real stuff. And like,
Oh, yes.
It's been really eye-opening for me to hear some of these stories, because I'm not on the receiving end of it. And so I wouldn't know about it, but also I'm not on the delivery end of it. Like I would never, and so but I think it's important for us to know. Is there like some situations you can tell us, just to kind of enlighten us, that has either happened to you or maybe family members that would just kind of open our eyes a little bit? And, and it would kind of speak to what you said about, I don't want to say that racism doesn't exist, because it does.
It does exist.
Just because I'm not a victim of it, and I'm not a perpetrator of it. Like, I feel like we need to hear some of these stories.
Right. And it is, yes. So, yes, I just want to spew a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay.
It is interesting how, dear friends of mine too, will say as innocently as anyone, and these are friends, these are people that are true friends, would give the shirt off their back to me. Oh my God, your hair is different. What did you do today? As innocent as that.
Yeah.
Everybody cuts their hair, or when you have your natural blonde, show through color it. Joke.
Yeah.
But to say, from the difference of me personally, myself, if I wash my hair and let it air dry, it dries in curls.
Right.
If I wash my hair and blow dry it, I can blow dry it pretty smooth, and it looks different. It's still me. It's still my hair. It's not, in my case, a weave, like something else added into it, or a wig, something else on top of it, nor a relaxer, something chemically altered.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting how that something as innocent as that, sometimes in the tone of voice that people used,
it makes you
oh my
uncomfortable.
God, what'd you do to your hair?
Oh.
If it's air dried and curly,
yeah,
and it's puffy and out there and big, and how that has actually been used against people to this day as a discrimination. Her hair or his hair is too big. You've heard about schools cutting children's dreadlocks off, or braids, because it was distracting. That is crap.
Yeah.
So it could be something very innocent,
right,
to where someone does not think that they are being discriminatory or racist, but that is very racist.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be blatant, like, oh, there's a black person and a non-black person, or a brown person and a non-brown person, and their education, everything's the same, and I'm just going to go non-brown because it's less of a hassle.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that blatant. It could be the innocent remarks of what someone's eating for lunch, for God's sake, in a cafeteria.
Yeah.
Ew, what is that?
Oh my gosh.
It could be something as innocent as, oh my God, who put something in the microwave? It smells in here, and it's curry, or something as innocent as that is not meant to be. That person may not think anything racist or racial or anything of it, but it is derogatory and discriminating against another person's
Culture.
normalcy.
Right. Yeah. It
Yes.
makes them feel bad.
Something
It makes them feel like
that
something.
is normal.
Yeah. And no, I know exactly what you're saying. And everyone just kind of needs to be aware. And, and by the way, why would, I don't know, like maybe if it was talking about your hair.
Yes.
What happened to your hair? I mean, like that is kind of a terrible
right.
thing
That's
to
an
say.
odd question. You don't ask anyone else. If my hair is in a ponytail one day and it's in a curly afro the next day and it's blown out and blowing in the wind the next day and it's in two pigtails the next day, you don't say to a non-brown skinned person, what you do to your hair, unless they get a severe haircut from long to short. That's the only time someone says, oh my God, look at your hair. It's so cute. Right. Or wow, you cut your hair off. You don't say anything else about it. But to any other person of color, you say something, and it may be to that person saying it an innocent. Yeah. However, it's so odd to hear that. Well, it is an odd question.
Well,
What'd
and
you do to your hair?
Puts you on the spot too, and even if it's complimentary, there was some issue taken with it was a high school aged girl, one of the only people of color at this particular high school, had great friends and whatever, and she came with some fantastic braids or something that was, and so her friends made a big deal about it and wanted to touch it and stuff like that, and they just didn't know. No, don't. It's better if you don't.
It's better if you don't.
But they didn't know. They didn't know.
Either
so maybe
compliment or keep your mouth shut. Right.
And maybe, well, you know how high school girls compliment too.
Well, yeah, that's too. That's an age thing, but adults do the same thing. Right.
Yeah. So maybe say, I love it. This is beautiful. Or, whatever.
Or if you don't, just keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut.
I mean, but I get it. High school, we know how kids are. But when adults do the same thing, adults should know better.
Right.
Adults should have the reasoning to be able to approach the situation in an adult manner, in a different manner.
Right.
Because adults can reason. We understand that children can't. We understand that middle school kids, high school kids, we understand that the reasoning is different because, everybody knows your brain develops until you're 25. Everybody knows. But when adults approach it, and when you see this infighting now, this fighting with adults, and it's just unbelievable. You're an adult. Please.
Yeah.
Reason.
Let's talk a little bit about that too, because I felt like, everybody was on board, like on the same page, this is wrong. But then what maybe lost some allies or they get stuck on is the looting and the rioting. And I feel like then they say, well, that's breaking the law. Well, yeah, it is.
True. It is.
It is. Talk about that because we do learn in these horrible situations of today, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and police, that shoot unarmed Black men and women. For every case of that, you can bring up the case of an armed white person who was taken to lunch after they killed several people. Yeah.
Or, actually handcuffed when they've killed several people. And they are armed. They are visibly armed. They have been they've maybe been in a car chase or some kind of foot chase, and they have the weapon on them when they are caught. And they are merely tackled and handcuffed and led to a vehicle and spoken to. But if it is an unarmed Black child or man or woman, they are shot, sometimes several times. And so that riles people up. Yeah. So the looting, we've also learned, looting is against the law. Yes, It's horrible. It's horrible. And we've also learned that people from other areas have gone into different areas and they are looting, and they are not always Black and brown people.
Mm-hmm.
You see it, you watch it on your television screen. Are you not believing what you're watching? Are you not believing that there are non-Black and brown people looting? Are you not believing what your eyes are showing you?
Well, I think
so, and then when you actually hear the reporter's account, if they speak to someone carrying away something that is looted, are you from this area? Oh, no, I'm from a couple towns over. I drove in. When you hear that, do you not understand how that riles other people up to make them angry and furious? And looting is wrong. I'm not saying anybody should ever loot. It is against the law. And if you're looting and you are caught, you should go to jail.
Right.
You should not break windows of establishments. You should not run through and take everything you think you can carry out. You should go to jail no matter who you are for that. But the fact is, we know that it doesn't happen that way.
And
we know this.
The overwhelming majority of people that I have seen posting about that has said the exact same thing. What I found helpful was that's a whole different thing. You can't have that negate the fact that what happened to George Floyd is wrong.
It's wrong.
And I was very pleased to see that the overwhelming majority of at least the people that I'm associated with can compartmentalize that. Like, okay, it's a different thing. Both are wrong, but the fact that this looting is going on does not justify.
That does not justify or
not
condone anything else. Not at all. It's horrifying. But you do see them, the police, the authority, the armed militia, whatever they've brought in, treat people differently. And that is what riles up Black and brown people, period.
Yeah.
Period. Through it's through history. It's not just 2020. It's not just George Floyd. It didn't start with George Floyd.
Right.
But George Floyd certainly seems to be the straw that broke the camel's back.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
Is
it because we all see it? As opposed to read about it?
In this day and age, we can see things immediately.
Yeah.
Whereas, let's say, as few as maybe 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you couldn't see it so immediately.
Yeah.
And now people are angry, of course, but they've always been angry. They've been angry since 16 whatever, when European people massacred Native people. But there's no way to, you're reading about one person's version in a history book, probably a Caucasian person's version in a history book that says these natives were savages.
Right.
They were here, they were living, they were prosperous in their way. And someone came in and massacred entire tribes. There are tribes that don't exist anymore. There are people that do not exist because someone from an outside world, typically Caucasian, came in and slaughtered them. And that is the history. Pick up a history book and read it.
Yeah.
That makes people angry. And when you only report the one side of that history, probably reported and written by a Caucasian male.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you bring up Native Americans too, because
furious. It's infuriating.
Well, the Washington Redskins. I've always thought, okay, yeah, that name is, and I live in Kansas City. And they're called the Chiefs, but supposedly that's like a nickname for the guy who started the team or owned the team, or something
someone
like that.
in charge, right? Yeah.
And that, I don't know how much cultural appropriation has gone on, with the Chiefs franchise. But I do know that the Redskin name, to me, I thought that's a little, so that's what I don't understand too is, I feel like people are so far removed from the whole plight of Native Americans because it happened so long ago. Well, then why are we perpetuating it?
Why are we
Can't
perpetuating
Can't
it?
we do
Right.
better? Let's do better.
We
Let's all
can
want to
do better.
Yeah.
Through education. I mean, a huge thing is the reason why so much of this happens when you see on the news today, there are people that don't know or understand or believe that these historic things happened. They happened. It is real. It was real. And if you are unaware of the history of why, then you're going to perpetuate it.
Right. And I think,
You know, slavery goes back to, my goodness, as long as there were people walking the planet, back to forever. So, sure, Europeans were not the first people to enslave someone else.
yeah.
But they were so horrifyingly cruel until today. It still happens in a manner of a fear of a black or brown person having something. In the 50s and 60s, in the 40s, when all a black or brown person wanted to do was sit at a counter and eat.
Yeah, I know.
And dogs were brought in, and hoses were brought in, and police were brought in for someone wanting to eat. Or prior to that, in the 1800s, when slaves were chased and captured and their foot was cut off, or they were hung, or they were beaten, it was because they wanted to be free. For that only reason. They were captured and hung and killed for wanting to be away from the situation of being trapped. I want everyone to think about that.
Yeah.
I want everyone to really think about that. They didn't have their feet cut off if they stayed. They weren't whipped if they didn't speak up. They were whipped or killed or beaten or dismembered because they wanted to be free.
I'm so glad you brought
Think
that
about
up.
that.
Yeah, because that really puts it into perspective. It explains some history, but then also too, it's hopeful in a way because it was so bad. My God, and you think about that. It's fairly recent history too, right?
Yes,
I know,
fairly recent history.
I mean, you mentioned the 60s. You know, that's pretty recent.
Pretty recent.
But
dogs brought in for someone wanting to ride a bus or go to school or eat.
And what a time we're living in that I feel like, do you feel like it's different this time? Like, I feel like maybe other times.
What's different? Do I feel like what's different?
Do you feel like there's a lot of hope that people are going to make real and lasting changes within their own lives? Like, and how they think about things and how they treat people and what they will tolerate, maybe from, you know what I mean?
You know, it's sad. I think younger people at the moment that are possibly in not grade school, too young to have the wherewithal, but say high school and university. I feel it's really changing how they may think.
Yes, I agree.
And coming forward from them.
Yes.
But I honestly feel anyone over the age of as young as 30, they think about it and it hurts them for a week.
And then they go on.
And then it's out of sight, out of mind, and they go on. And it's not on their mind.
Yeah, you could be right. Well, that's why we're talking about this. And that's why, I'm going to kind of do some other episodes just to keep this top of mind for people.
Yes.
As the mother of a college-aged kid and a high school-aged kid, I agree with what you're saying. It's much more, they are being taught that this is wrong. And not just about race and ethnicity and that kind of thing, but also about gender and sexuality.
Sure.
They
as
are
you
so
talk
much
to your
more,
own child.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
as
so
you
much
talk
more
to your
welcoming.
own child, how do you talk to your own child? What do they think? Do you ask your child, what do you feel about this? What's going on? Because your child's old enough. Your child is of college age.
Yes. Yeah. So, I think another thing too, what I'm seeing as lasting, and with my age group too, I'm seeing it as more of a long and lasting change, just because, you're a close friend of mine. My friend Nicole is a close friend of mine.
Yeah.
I don't know that generations before, I don't know if my parents can say that they have grown up with or spent, I don't know how long we've known each other, but
right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's where I see the change. I see the change.
And let me throw one more twist into it, just because I can personally. Of my family, 80 to 90% of my family, my immediate family, passes for something else.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
you guys
growing
got kind
up,
of an
I
exotic
never knew
look.
what that phrase meant.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't talked about in my home. So I'm not comparing me to anybody else's home or anybody else. I'm talking about me personally. In my home, that phrase wasn't used.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't used. There were phrases that we hear common today that I hear as an adult now, as a brown skin. You look at me, you do not mistake me for anything else than an adult brown skin woman. However, my family, 80 to 90% of my family, when I hear that phrase today as an adult, passes for, or it hits me differently because I never heard that phrase growing up.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that was said in the household.
Yeah, that's always interesting too, whenever I hear stories about within your own community, how there's just different, I don't know, would you call it hierarchy, or would you call it,
I don't know.
or where it was, you didn't want to be too dark. You didn't want to be too dark, or you
Becky
didn't want
with the good hair.
Yes.
Becky with that phrase. Okay, of course, Becky is new, but no, that phrase, the good hair.
Yeah, you got good hair.
It wasn't used growing up. I didn't hear that phrase until maybe I was of college age.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting within the community of the Black community that includes a whole lot of people that are a myriad of shades and colors within that.
Yeah.
How, yes, I don't use the word hierarchy because I don't feel anyone is better than anybody else. However, different. And yes, people within the Black community do treat other people within the Black community differently. And also, until that changes, how would you ever expect anyone that's not in the Black community to react to you when you treat your own community negatively?
Well, I know that, some folks that I know that are in multicultural relationships, be it marriages or whatever, they get crap from both sides.
Of course,
I don't even know how to say that. I'm sure that there's probably a right way to say that, and that was probably not the right way to say it. But yeah, it's something that I think all of us need to work on getting comfortable with this.
Yeah. And I don't understand why you're not comfortable with human beings. I just don't understand. I understand why you're not comfortable with someone who is a thief.
Right. Yeah.
Someone who is a rapist.
Or mean.
Someone who is a molester.
Yeah.
Someone who is just a mean person. That makes perfect sense to me.
Right.
I do not understand why you're not comfortable with a human being.
Mm-hmm.
That is what really blows my mind.
So, Iris,
unbelievable.
What would you suggest to listeners that want to make, like I said, I just keep calling it a long and lasting change? What do we need to do? I feel like this is a start. We're linking arms, we're talking about it openly. You know what I mean? But is there anything else you can think of that that we can do? Are there books that we should be reading?
Oh my goodness, yes, so many books.
And then
yes.
also, Iris, can you say maybe some things we shouldn't be doing? Like maybe get a little bit into like appropriation or just some things maybe that comments that have been made to you in the past that maybe you didn't appreciate, that in light of recent events, if you do want to make a change and, be better, what should we do?
Yes.
Teach us.
Okay. Let me mention this one book first off.
Okay.
Everybody on the planet should read the book Stamped from the Beginning.
Okay.
The definitive history of racist ideas in America. It was on the New York Times best-selling list. It is written by, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Ibram, 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 capital X, middle name, Kendi, capital Kendi.
Okay.
Ibram X. Kendi. The book is fascinating.
Okay.
So that's one thing. The whole planet should be reading that book.
Well, let's start a book club.
As far as, really.
No, seriously, I think, because I will read this and then I would love to have you back on and let's talk about it. And let's have, if you're listening to this and you just want to link arms with us and get better and make some changes, let's read Stamped from the Beginning. Let's read what Iris said. That's the
definitive history of racist ideas in America, and you find it in your library, and it's on hold probably for a million months.
Yeah,
it's just fascinating.
Okay,
things that even me as an adult, brown skinned adult, you just don't think of. Okay, so to what should we do?
Yes,
communication, communication with your neighbors, your family, your friends, just communication. If something feels odd or weird or you're curious, it's so much. Yes, it could be difficult. Like this conversation, people are having difficult conversations that need to be had.
Yeah.
It is very difficult and unsettling to talk about race because it is uncomfortable, because the American history of race, the United States history of race, is extremely unsettling.
Yep.
It is extremely difficult to talk about because in the United States, many different races were treated horribly.
This is true. Yeah.
And it generally by a Caucasian, but it could be a whole bunch of things. History is unsettling, and the more education you have, and the more communication, and the more you're willing to really listen and talk about it.
Yeah.
You can't fix anything until you listen to how someone else feels and don't negate someone's feelings.
Yes.
So that is something we can do. You cannot negate how someone else feels.
Well, and you also can't be inconvenienced by how somebody else feels. Like I feel like I'm kind of getting that too. Like, why are they so sensitive or whatever? And another thing too,
because they are,
right?
Because
it
hurts,
is,
because it's their reality, because they've been through it before, because their family's been through it. There are so many reasons that.
Yeah.
Okay, this is bringing in another topic, but the reason why not George Floyd specifically and Breonna Taylor, because we are an internet world now and we can see everything.
Yeah.
But had COVID not been in effect, no one would have been home with their television sets on, with their computers on.
Yes.
We would have been going about our normal lives, going out, and we would have caught snippets and bits and pieces. But because we were in our own homes, locked down, unable to do anything else, it was right in our face.
Well, and that's why I think too that this, I don't know, there's something different about this time. And you might have hit the nail on the head too, is that it just permeated everything because we had no choice.
You had no choice. You had to see it because you had no choice.
Well, and what you said too about, they go on and they think of other stuff. Well, look, a lot of times I think they went on and did other stuff, but they went to a protest, a peaceful protest.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Or so I don't know. I just feel like we, obviously there's still a lot of work to be done, but I feel like this time it's different. Hopefully. Yeah.
We won't know. We won't know how it affects people 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. We won't know that until we get there.
Right.
5 years down the line, 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
And we're not there yet. But is it refreshing to see people reacting at the moment? Yes, it is. But I do feel it lasts a week and then it is forgotten. I had never even heard the name Breonna Taylor or heard the news story that it had happened.
Right.
And that happened back in February.
Right.
And they resurged with the news story after George Floyd.
Yes.
So think of all the things that you'll never hear. I'm sure there are people not from the state of Florida that are just now hearing about Zimmerman killing a teenager that was walking down the street.
Yeah.
Only because that happened here in Florida, we heard it immediately. I'm sure there are people in Wyoming, anywhere, that have never even heard the story. An unarmed teenager going to one of his parents' homes with Skittles in his pocket, being tailed by someone who felt he didn't belong in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he is dead, a teenager. What?
I know.
So it fascinates my mind that, yes, people seem to be pulling together. Will it last? Wow, that would be something.
Well, hopefully it will. And I'm going to circle back with you once I read my book.
Yeah.
Once I read this book, and let's just continue talking about it and continue talking about. Yeah, and I think another thing too, Iris, people feel overwhelmed because so that's another thing I want to concentrate on is what can you do in your own life, because that's what you have control of. You have control of what.
That's the only thing you have control of.
Right. So let's think about what we're going to tolerate. Let's think about what we're going to say. Let's think about how we're going to treat people.
Yeah.
And if someone's saying, well, I don't have black friends, well, get some.
Right. And I do believe it is overwhelming.
For Christ's sake.
It is overwhelming when if people actually take the time to think about some of the things they might have said or a way they might have reacted, or the actual reality that I don't have any black friends or brown friends, or the opposite.
Well,
I don't have
another
any white
thing I
friends.
want to bring up to you
is that's overwhelming to people when they think about it.
Or I want people also to think about appropriation as well. I think there was I don't even remember who it was, some recording artist in the news lately that was wearing her hair a certain way and was wearing some sort of bikini that
Adele.
Was that who? Oh, see,
I believe it was Adele.
Okay.
She put her hair in Bantu, what is called Bantu knots. They're little twists all over your head. The funny thing about that, I'm going to tell another little story. Growing up as a child with my curly, thick hair, that is how I slept at night. It keeps your hair less tangly. You separate it out and you twist it in the little knots. And I slept that way. That is how my mommy did my hair, on my grandma.
Right.
That is what we do to our hair too. And in my opinion, I never knew they were called Bantu knots. It's not something we used around the house. It's not a word we used. Never heard of it before.
Right.
But I slept with my hair in those little tiny twists because it kept it tangle free. And then in the morning you wake up and mommy does your hair, all the little knots come out, brush them out, yay, you got your ponytails, your pigtails, your curls, whatever it is. And as an adult, I swear to goodness, like just a few years ago, learned that there is a name for that because it is a tribal thing from somewhere on the continent of Africa. It is a real named thing. But it wasn't something you wore your hair to school with as a kid. And for someone else to do it as a style, but then not, this is cool now.
Yeah,
But
see, I
like I
don't
said,
like
you're
that.
cutting
I don't
children's
know.
hair off.
Yeah.
You're cutting children's hair off because they have dreads or braids, which is something cultural to them. But then you're going to do it, and all of a sudden, it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. That's weird.
I know. I just think you just need to be real careful and think, just because you might think it's cool, we'll do a little research. Maybe you're going to be hurting some people's feelings, or maybe you're going to, like, that's not the right thing.
Right. Nobody's going to cut her hair off.
Yeah.
Nobody cut Bo Derek's braids off when she copied cornrow style braids.
I remember
for a movie,
that back in the 70s.
And it became a hit because of the movie, but cultures have been doing that culturally for as long as the culture existed.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden an actress does it and it's popular. Yet to this day in 2020, you're going to cut a child's hair off because it's in that style in 2020. And these people as a culture have been doing that forever. Yeah, I don't understand that. I don't think I like that.
Well, and I think people, if it's never been done to them, they're just, I don't know, they're very flippant about it. One example I can give, I'm Catholic, and there was some sort of Met gala or whatever where it was very, like, all of a sudden we're wearing rosaries, and I don't know if it was Rihanna. Somebody showed up in a really cool, like, Pope outfit or something like
I think it was Rihanna. I'm not positive, but I do believe it might have been Rihanna.
And I didn't get my feelings all hurt, and I'm not going to be writing letters or anything, but I just thought, I don't know about
Interesting
that.
choice.
Yeah, and it was really cool, but I wouldn't, I'm Catholic.
But being
I would never
from Jamaica, she could be Catholic too.
She could, and and I'm not gonna get all hurt, but I understand, especially since I guess Catholics have been persecuted and stuff like that, but in our country, not to the extent of other cultures who, if their stuff is appropriated, I get that. It's just sort of like, it's certainly merits a moment's pause. That's for sure when you do that.
Yes.
And it kind of shows, do you really know what that means? When you're wearing it like that, and
who knows? Look at Madonna.
She's Catholic.
She caught flack.
She was.
And she is Catholic, and she
was.
caught a lot of flack.
Yeah. Well,
look at Sinead O'Connor.
Oh, she ripped
I don't
the
know if
Pope's
she's
picture.
Catholic or not, but she tore up the picture of the Pope, and she caught flack.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure. And she knew what she was doing. She absolutely knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there are many things that have happened that we do need to, of course, know the history of. I think just education. Really, what can we do?
And
there's so much to learn and read and listen, but to listen, or if something strikes you, if something hits you heavy when you are seeing something and you have a heavy reaction to it, try to figure out why that person, group reacted in that manner before you're going to burn down their home.
Right.
Try to figure it out first before you take that reaction that you have and look at that reaction. Why am I mad? I'm mad because it hit my religion or my heart. Well, then why did that person do it? Who is that person? Try to listen and find out why they did it before you're ready to shoot them.
Well, and to have an understanding. This is why people feel this way.
Exactly.
Instead of defending it, understand.
Exactly. Understand it. And you still may dislike it. That's fine. It's fine for you to dislike it. My goodness, we live in a free country.
Right.
Please, you can dislike anything you want, but know why, other than it just made me mad.
Right.
Well, why did it make you mad? Or they shouldn't exist. Well, no, why would you say that?
Yeah.
Please understand. And thank goodness it's still for now it's still a free country. Who knows? But I don't want to get into that. I do not want to get into that. Please, that's a whole nother topic.
Oh, God. Well, and that's frightening. That's a whole nother thing too, where, just concentrate on on what is in front of you, because the other is just too overwhelming, too scary, too overwhelming.
It's very frightening. Yeah. Everything's very frightening right now.
Yeah. But, let's read, let's get educated, let's be good to each other. Let's help each
let's
other
be
out.
open-minded.
Yes, and continue conversations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Iris, thank you so much. I appreciate you talking to me, and I appreciate you enlightening, everybody. And I appreciate you being so open. And I'm going to read that book, and I'm going to invite everybody else to too.
Yeah.
And then,
Melanie, this is great. Thank you for wanting to talk.
Oh, my pleasure.
And talk for real, and talk and be open and express different opinions and to listen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. All right.
That's why you're dear. That's why I love you. Oh, my God.
I want to thank Iris for just that honest discussion.
That was amazing.
Yeah. And I think the major takeaways for me was just to educate your own self. Educate yourself, which we're going to do with the book club. And I was very serious about that. Ask me how far I've gotten in the book so far, Kayla.
How far, Mel?
Maybe the first couple paragraphs with the introduction, but I'm going to read it.
It's a start. All right. I don't even read books anymore. I'm all about Audible books. So
awesome. I'm sure it's available, the Audible book as well. But I got mine from the library for free.
Oh, wow.
So, absolutely. It was an
I didn't know people
electronic
still
download.
went there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's no due date on it, so I don't know how other people's libraries are set up, but sometimes when you do like an electronic download, there's a due date. But mine's living there on my laptop. So we're going to get to that, and probably in a couple months, we're going to give people time to read that book. And then in a couple months, we will have Iris back on, and we're going to have a little book club session. So you are more than welcome to join us. I would love that. And reach out to us if you would like to weigh in with maybe something that you learned from the book, or something that you learned from this conversation. I would love to include the listeners in that as well.
Yep. Our Instagram is Larkspur Dance, and we're on Facebook as well.
Awesome. Okay. And I also wanted to talk about one of our advertisers, our sponsors, Support Fund.
Oh, yes.
So the sponsor for this podcast is Support Fund, and I love these guys.
They're my favorite.
Yes. It's more than just a fundraiser. And I love that because I was a teacher and I was a coach way, way long ago. And I just understand that it is more, just like what this episode was, it's about more than 5, 6, 7, 8. So they're teaching life lessons over there at Support Fund, and skills, and equipping your dancers with tools that they will use for the rest of their lives. The average result when fundraising with Support Fund is $200 per team member.
What?
I know. And that's at the end of a week.
That's a lot.
I know. So it's just a concentrated week. I love that about it too. And there was a record set by a team that I want to mention, just to let people know what was possible. $8,628 in 1 week is the record that was set with Support Fund. So it is possible.
Do we know how many people were on the team?
22.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they make it easy over there at Support Fund too. Reach out to my friend Jacob Kent, supportfund.com, and you can also find that at our new affiliates page at larkspurdance.com.
Yep.
Thank you, Kayla.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for listening, and we will chat with you next week.
Bye.